Where are the big chips falling with these head coaches? Like I said, we've got 5 openings right now. We've got Washington, we've got Atlanta, we've got Carolina, we've got the Chargers, and we've got the Raiders. Potentially coming, New England Patriots. Maybe coming, Tennessee Titans. Other than that, I think we're probably talking about it would be a surprise if other jobs open, but there absolutely could be a surprise. That happens every year. So I'm starting us off, Ben Solak, with the story, biggest story. We've already committed many minutes and segments to this man, and the man is Bill Belichick. But I feel like things are happening quickly in the NFL, and so I need to get out ahead of my prediction of what I think is going to happen with Bill Belichick. So here it is. Take number 1. Bill Belichick is coaching the Atlanta Falcons in 2024. All right, so where did this come from? I got to give a shout out to Diana Rossini of The Athletic. She's the first person I saw who reported this, writes a terrific column on the weekends with kind of the intel she's gathered throughout the week. And she wrote on that, caught my eye. I'm blogging on Saturday morning, reading it. She says, keep an eye out for Arthur Blank to take a big swing for Bill Belichick if he moves on from Arthur Smith. This isn't a rebuild in Atlanta anymore. As the weekend goes on, you hear Bill Belichick linked to Atlanta a little bit more. You know, you always have to take all these reports with a grain of salt. Is it agent driven? Is it somebody trying to create a market? All those things happen this time of year. There's no doubt about it. But the Atlanta Falcons were the first team to announce their coach firing this weekend. I mean, Sunday night before you went to bed.
We were 2 minutes into Black Monday. I was writing a column still.
Yeah. Arthur Smith was out of there. And quite frankly, that surprised me. I think they were justified in firing Arthur Smith. 3 straight 7-win seasons. They had higher expectations this year. It didn't happen. But I also don't think that was like a clear no-brainer. You know, They weren't like a train wreck or anything. You weren't like, oh my God, this is the worst coach in the NFL, anything like that. Like I could have imagined a scenario where Arthur Blank said, I like Arthur Smith personally. It didn't work out this year. I'm going to give him 1 more year. Let's see what we can do at quarterback and go forward. That did not happen. He was out of there right away, which makes me wonder, Ben, does Arthur Blank already have a good idea of what the market's going to look like and who he's going to hire? So case for Belichick is pretty simple here. You've drafted 3 skill position players in the top 10 the last 3 years. You've got the 8th pick in this draft. You're paying 3 offensive linemen $10 million or more per year. You signed veterans on defense last season. The division is wide open. We all saw this, a terrible division. Falcons didn't win it. Bucks win it for the 3rd straight season somehow. But it's reasonable to believe that you can take this Falcons team with a good coach and some solution at quarterback, maybe add a veteran in the offseason, and you can win the NFC South next year, and maybe you can be the best team in that division for years to come. So it's not like a rebuild in Atlanta. They are pretty much in, like, we want to be competitive right now with a couple more moves here. So that's the case from Atlanta's perspective. From Bill Belichick's perspective, he's going to have options, but like, you don't get your pick of like any job. You know, they're going to be somewhat limited. So you have to compare what's this job going to give him that other jobs might not. I mean, Carolina's a worse situation given the owner. Vegas seems like it would be a weird fit. The Chargers, maybe. But ultimately, I feel like Belichick's decision, and again, he's still coach of the Patriots right now. I don't think that's going to be the case for much longer. And I think his decision is going to come down to Atlanta and potentially Washington are the 2 teams I kind of have my eye on here. And I think the case for Belichick for Atlanta is like, you're not drafting a quarterback number 2 and having to develop him. Like this is you can add a veteran quarterback, hopefully, and you can be ready to go right away. So if that's what you want, if that's what you're chasing, if you want to chase these wins, if you want to just have a competitive team, you want to get back in the playoffs, you want to be relevant once again in this final phase of your career, I think Atlanta could make a lot of sense. What do you think? Bill Belichick, Atlanta Falcons coach, 2024.
So I like it. because I think Bill Belichick is still a good coach, and I think that Atlanta's got good pieces, right? I never endorsed the Falcons as winning the division on this podcast. I never endorsed that they're making the playoffs on this podcast. I never, ever, anytime said that they were going to be good. However, I do like some of the pieces that they have, right? Offensively, with Drake London, with Bijan Robinson, even with Kyle Pitts, with that offensive line investment that they've got, like there's good pieces there. And then defensively, and this is where things I think start to get a little tricky. There's young players to like. I think Zach Harrison had a good season. I think that Landman and Nate Landman, the linebacker, had a good season. AJ Terrell, Jesse Bates, like there's stuff that you like. I really like what Ryan Nielsen did as their first year DC. I think that Nielsen got more out of that defensive unit than you would expect given the resources there. If I'm Atlanta, I like my position to bring in like a really a nice young offensive mind, say, hey, we got some pieces for you here. Go get a quarterback that makes your system work, right? If you're a QB run guy, go get Justin Fields, get a Shanahan and go sign Kirk Cousins. And then we've already got offensive line for you. We've got weapons for you. And keep Nielsen in the building. I think you can recover this team pretty quickly. I think that's a good path for you. If you go the Belichick route, then you're losing Nielsen, and you need to get a good OC in to address that side of the ball. And Belichick's OC hiring is like spurious, right? It's something that you and I have a lot of.
It's going to be Josh McDaniels, isn't it? I mean, that it just feels like that's going to be.
And so
the guy.
I'm not sure. I'm more excited by Bill Belichick, Josh McDaniels, and insert. Probably Steve Belichick here.
Steve
DC. I'm not sure I'm more excited about that than I am about like Ben Johnson and Ryan Nielsen in on this thing. Like I think like that gives me some juice. When I look at the jobs, like let's say if in the world in which Belichick is pick of the litter, right? Let's say every single team is putting an offer on the table for Belichick that's open. I think we're underestimating just how valuable the Chargers job is with Justin Herbert in hand. If you go back and you look for like equivalent times where a quarterback that was this definitely good, like I don't need to do, top 3, top 4, very clearly like a great young quarterback. You go and try to find jobs that open up with that guy. It's hard. Like it's like Andrew Luck with Frank Reich, but then he was coming off of injury stuff and kind of, we knew how that went. Like Dak, technically, again, like with Garrett into McCarthy, he was also a little bit older than Herbert was. Like you don't really find mid-20s guys who are definitely good at quarterback. You don't find that head coaching job open very often. And I think that the surety that you get from Herbert, as opposed to Washington with a draft pick, Atlanta with a draft pick and trade capital, Vegas with kind of nothing. Like the first thing you need is a franchise quarterback when you go to pick a job, and the Chargers have it. It's done. Like the keystone is in place, and everything else you try to figure out. I think that if he had his pick of the litter, like you said, Atlanta and Washington, I think if the Chargers put an offer on the table for him, like if I were in his shoes, that'd be the offer I'd be taking.
Yeah, it's always so hard because we don't know. We always assume we know what each guy's motivation is, and certainly Bill Belichick's motivation is going to be different than someone like Ben Johnson's motivation, at this stage in their careers. If you're Ben Johnson, you're like, I want to, be somewhere where hopefully I can be the coach for a long time and I can develop and grow and we can win and we can build a thing. I don't know exactly. I just think Bill Belichick probably wants to keep coaching. He probably wants to win games. He probably wants to break that record. And obviously, you always want to win. You always want to win Super Bowls, but there's other stuff that comes with that. Are the Chargers going to be willing to pay what other teams are willing to pay? Does he like the ownership structure? How does he feel about the rest of the roster there? All those different things. From a quarterback perspective, you're right. I mean, that's a no-brainer. So I think those are the big questions with Atlanta. One would be quarterback situation. You'd have to be sold on, hey, I can bring somebody in that can fit with the other pieces. And the other thing that's interesting there is they still have a GM in place in Terry Fontenot. Like they fired Arthur Smith. Yes. They did not fire the GM. And I think they said the GM is going to help with the coach search. So I don't know if that's something that Belichick would be comfortable with or not. We're going to find out a lot in the next, maybe just this week, 2 weeks, about what is Belichick looking for from kind of a power structure perspective. Is he open to working with somebody as a GM who he doesn't know? Is he saying, I will hire a GM, but it's going to be someone who I have a background with, and that's the way we're going to go? I don't think, and maybe I'm wrong, he's going to be like, I'm going to go in and I'm going to be the guy calling all the shots at this point in my career, but maybe he will be. Yeah. Who knows? These coaches say a lot of things, but ultimately they generally don't like giving up some of that power. That
Can
control.
I get a % chance he actually ends up staying with the Patriots?
I mean, I have it as like I have it under 10%.
Okay. Can I get a 0 to 10 Sheil rage if he ends up staying with the Patriots?
I mean, I don't think you're going to get a Sheil rage. I disagree. Like, I think I do disagree with the consensus that like he's absolutely still a top tier coach in the NFL. I think, can he scheme a defense up? Absolutely. Come up with a game plan, the experience. I'm not arguing with the resume. I'm looking at what you need to win in the year 2024. I guess I should say now. And so much of it, I write my, my coaching rules. Like, so much of it is, can you put together a great staff? This guy has had 2 chances to find an offensive coordinator the last 2 years, and he's got absolutely nothing. He goes from Matt Patricia to Bill O'Brien. So that to me, is a huge, huge problem. And so if you can't really come up with an answer for the offense, and again, maybe it'll just be Josh McDaniels and that'll be fine. That's going to raise your floor a little bit. But I mean, I think there are 3 teams that have fewer wins than the Patriots in the last 2 seasons. Like, I don't care that the team, plays it. Like, most teams play hard, unless you just have a coach who everybody hates. Most professional athletes, most professional football players are going to play hard. They have a personal pride. So, like, I don't give him too many points for that. I think there was some recency bias with kind of how they finished out the season. They were more competitive. This was a team that was getting blown out. This was a team that was losing to like the Washington Commanders this season. This was not a well-coached team for most of the season. So I don't know that I'll have rage. I mean, I'll just feel like, what are you doing? This is like, I feel like this was the extra year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I was fine. Like, all right, like, he's earned it. Give him another year. See how it shakes out with a non-Matt Patricia. That was this year. I don't really know what you're doing if you're going from this and say, keep him again. I mean, that team needs a lot of work.
When it's theory, you're like, I don't know if there'll be rage. If this comes to practice, you're going to hop on the Monday show, but my first take, Robert Kraft, what are you doing? Like, classic, like, Sheil little tempo.
That's probably
and
right.
You're doing this and this, like this. Like, it'll come out for sure. It'll come out. I buy it.
All right, that's probably right. All right, there you go. So I've got, give me your on the record though of where do you think Belichick? Because we don't know how fast this thing can move. So I'm saying Atlanta. What is if I have to pick right now, water gun to my midsection, where's Bill Belichick coaching?
24 hours ago, I would have told you the Commanders. I don't think it's the Commanders anymore. I think Atlanta and Chargers are your leaders in the clubhouse. What I find really fascinating about the Patriots job, and I tried to get a take on this and I couldn't really get it square, so we'll just talk about it. It seems like people really want this job, man. Like, there's the whole Vrabel rumor, like Vrabel would leave Tennessee to go to New England and coach there. I've heard that if and when John Harbaugh, about to coach in the national championship game in an hour and 15 minutes when we're recording this podcast, ascends to the NFL at the end of the season.
Jim Harbaugh.
I've heard that Harbaugh is the Patriots job is the one that he wants. Like, guys want to go there. You're excited to build DeMario Douglas? Yeah, excited. City Sal and a little Marte Mapu. That's the roster you're trying to those guys. Like, I bring up those guys because they are legitimate developmental players, but it's like, there's other rosters with younger dudes and star dudes. Like, it's interesting to me that people want that job. I'm assuming it's the Kraft commitment, right? Like, they're gonna
That's the number one thing.
It's
ownership. You talk to coaches around the NFL. That's the number one thing, is they don't want an owner who's going to sort of get it. They want an owner who's going to give them resources to succeed, and an owner who's not going to be too meddling and get in their way. And I'm sure they look at Robert Kraft and their success over the many years, and I think Robert Kraft wants to win. Like, not every owner wants to win. They all say they want to win. Not all of them want to win. I do think he wants to win. So I think that's probably the number one thing. These coaches have huge egos. They'll look at that roster. I mean, you think Jim Harbaugh's looking at that roster and that's not, like, he's probably looking at that going, oh man, we make a couple tweaks here, we're winning that division next year. That's how coaches think. And so they think they can fix anything there. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. All right, so you've got Falcons, or I'm going to give you Chargers because I took Falcons, and it's not that fun if we pick the same thing. All right.